To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation, devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream, aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. Thus, Hamlet speaks this grand soliloquy, and if I were more clever and had time, I would preach the rest of this sermon in iambic pentameter with cute rhyme. But I understand that has a limited appeal, and now I've lost some of you because you're trying to count my syllables in the last sentence. Trust me, I counted. Carmen checked my math. They were there. Literary humor is difficult to pull off in any crowd. But Hamlet is musing this struggle between living and dying, between being and giving up, taking the difficult path in front of him or lying down on a road with the appearance of far fewer struggles. Now, Shakespeare was not the first, of course, to wander down this contemplative path. Many have bent their minds around some of these thoughts and struggles, including Jesus, as we will see today in our text. Our story comes from Matthew's Gospel, the 4th chapter, verses 1 through 11. The scripture reads, "Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The accuser came and said to him, 'Since you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread.' But he answered, 'It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God.' Then the accuser took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, 'Since you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it is written, He will command His angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up so that you will not dash your foot against a stone.' And Jesus said to him, 'Again it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test.' Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, 'All these I will give to you if you will fall down and worship me.' Jesus said to him, 'Away with you, Satan. For it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only Him.' Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him." This is the word of the Lord. I don't know about you, but I tend to make bad choices when I'm hungry. Just this week in staff meeting, we were pushing through our meeting time, trying to knock off a few more tasks off of our long list. And one of us said to the rest of us, "Listen, I'm getting hungry and I'm about to get grumpy, and I just want you all to know that when you think about what we're going to do next." You've been there, busy doing something, and you realize it's not actually thundering outside, that's coming from my stomach. And something must be done about this problem right now. We're wired to eat when we're hungry. It's how our bodies protect us from our busy schedules. And here is Jesus in the wilderness, famished. And in slithers the accuser. Now, Matthew would expect us to not only think about this very human moment of hunger, but also about the Israelites in the wilderness, when their collective hunger pangs offered them the opportunity to make bad choices, and they took them in the form of begging Moses to take them back to Egypt, where even in their enslavement, they at least had food to eat. The Israelites decided they could trust Pharaoh, who commanded their sons be thrown into the Nile after their birth. They decided they could trust Pharaoh more than they could trust God. And here the accuser is tempting Jesus not just to use his power to feed himself, but to make loaves from the stones. Feed the people and they will certainly follow you. This isn't just about Jesus making a selfish decision. It's about who he will be as the Messiah. And the accuser is offering a path that, frankly, makes a lot of sense. Throughout our story, God is always interested in feeding the hungry, and Jesus knows that people will follow someone who takes care of their needs. But he responds to this very real temptation by quoting Deuteronomy 8, verse 3. He humbled you by letting you hunger, then by feeding you with manna, which neither you nor your ancestors were acquainted, in order to make you understand that one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. First time I ever really heard that passage was as a high school student in Nairobi, Kenya. We were there on a mission trip. We were working in the slums of Nairobi amidst absolute poverty, and my friend Joseph and I were walking around visiting people, and we met a man who invited us into his home. As we began to talk and visit about God, he and Joseph began having longer and longer conversations, and less of it was getting translated into English for me. And after a while, Joseph moaned and closed his eyes. Then he looked at me and he says he hasn't eaten in 3 days and he isn't sure he will eat again. But he says, a man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. And as he was praying this morning about his hunger, God sent us to him to share the word of God. We prayed together. We sang a hymn in Swahili. And as we were leaving, I said to Joseph, wait, we need to give him some money so he can eat, or we should take him to the church and feed him. Joseph said he offered that, but the man was full. I said, but he could die. Shouldn't we help him? Joseph looked at me with tears in his big brown eyes and said, we did help him. And we know dying isn't the worst thing that can happen to a man. He is listening to God in ways he never has before. He is full. God is offering to engage us on a level that far transcends what we will eat and what we will wear. But too often, we lose trust. We think, if it's to be, it's up to me, and we try to store up provisions to make us feel safe about tomorrow. Tomorrow is entirely in God's hands. And Jesus refused to earn our following through our bellies. He has our hearts in mind. So the accuser turns to a more Hamlet-esque dilemma and takes Jesus to the pinnacle of the temple and tempts him to test the scriptures about him. Now, angelic intervention in and of itself isn't wrong. In fact, the angels will come to Jesus' aid at the very end of this passage. But this temptation to call in the angelic safety net, if you will, is one that was with Christ throughout his ministry and his life, as he so acutely verbalized in the garden. when the guards came to arrest him. But here, at the pinnacle of the temple, Christ faces not only the temptation to earn his following through an episode of razzle-dazzle, but also a temptation to end it all here before it begins. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep no more, and by sleep we say to end. The heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to, 'tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep. Surely Jesus can taste at the end of 40 days of prayer and fasting just how difficult this journey will be. And who doesn't come close to feeling the heat of the fires of martyrdom and think twice about the path before them? Whether it would be nobler to take arms against these trials by ending them before they begin, or must he walk this slow and arduous Via Dolorosa? There's so many things wrapped up in this moment. Knowing Jesus would be a benevolent monarch, this is a very real temptation to win the votes or to win the following by jumping off the temple and have the crowds see him stop just before hitting the ground like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. And Jesus surely knows he would lead well and in ways that would be beneficial to the people and their ancestors. Now, I don't know, but I guess it's possible at some moment Muammar Gaddafi might have thought he could really be good for the people under his rule. Maybe he's too crazy for that, but someone like Hosni Mubarak at least has verbalized sentiments like that before, if not actually believed them. It's the same temptation in Les Miserables Jean Valjean faces when a man is captured whom the authorities believe to be the prisoner 24601. He's now the mayor of the town. And hundreds of workers have better lives because of his leadership and his wise compassion. And that might go away if he does. But again, this is a temptation to take the reins away from God and to assume one can do better. And Jesus, seeing something of the path before him, does not cave to the temptation to which Israel had fallen when they wandered in the desert. He responds by saying, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." Such beautiful complexity wrapped in that quote of Scripture for Jesus, who is Lord, to quote that to his tempter. And then the veil falls away. And the accuser takes Jesus to a high mountain and dangles the kingdoms of the world in front of him, offering to give them to Jesus if he would simply bow down and worship Satan. The temptation to idolatry is often very subtle. The golden calf isn't immediately thrust in your face and you're forced to choose, but little by little, allegiance is pledged and given. It's just going along to make this one sale. It's a really big account, and it would look good for me to land it. It's just bending my morals a tad in order to move up where I could really be a strong Christian influence on the people working under me. You know, it's just a cultural thing. I mean, they won't know that I don't really believe this, and we don't want to offend the customer. Sure, God may have called me to this or to that, but it doesn't pay well, and I'm tired of being tired. We bend our knees, especially when we think no one is looking, and we bow our hearts to half-gods, as Ralph Waldo Emerson calls them, because it will help us get to the next thing, and then we think we'll make our loyalty known or right. No one else was looking. It was just Jesus and Satan, and we know Jesus would have used these kingdoms well. Use them to tell people about God and about God's love, and maybe even a way that could be done without bloodshed. But it's all a lie. A thin veneer in the desert. We were talking about this passage several weeks ago, and Kevin said it was like a desert mirage. Had Jesus given in to any of these temptations, he would be a fool in the desert. Having bitten into a rock and broken his teeth, having jumped off what he thought was a tower to see how God would save him, he would have a face full of sand. And on bended knee, he would realize he'd just given up something he can never get back. There in the desert, with sand caked onto the blood and the tears in his beard, he would have fallen a fool's fall that we have tumbled through time and time again ourselves. But thanks be to God, as the writer of Hebrews writes, we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who is in every respect tested as we are, yet is without sin. Jesus casts away the accuser, resisted the very real temptations to compromise his being, and revealed and perhaps discovered who he truly was in the process. And it's like that with our times of temptation. Those moments are like litmus tests for us, revealing our faithfulness and our fears. So how are we doing with our desert catechism? Are we caving into our fears of scarcity and security? Or are we trusting God to know what we need and to provide enough to keep us hungry for greater things? Are we making compromises with our integrity because we lack patience to wait on God's timing and to trust the one who so clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire? Are we bending our knees and bowing our hearts to half-gods who would allure our allegiance to something less, something like trading gluttony for feasting and fasting, lust as a substitute for genuine intimacy, greed as a substitute for faith in God's hand, or pride as a substitute for owning our place as God's beloved children? Are we walking away from our moments of temptation looking like fools in the desert? Or are we rising as children who trust their Heavenly Father? My sisters and brothers, may we continue to fight the good fight, following our Lord down this difficult but righteous path. Amen.